Hi guys, hold on for a second. Before we proceed to the video, I have something very important to tell you. Professor John V. has published his new book in collaboration with Little French Media, and the title of the book is Neoliberalism, Inequality, and Authoritarianism. This book details how neoliberalism impacts the geopolitical economy in the 21st century. You can buy it from Amazon, and the link is in the description. Thank you. Now let's proceed to the video.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a session on feminism from a historical perspective, with a special focus on the era of neoliberalism. The topic of feminism, of course, has been very important since the late 19th century in the Western world, in Europe, the United States, especially late 19th century, early 20th century, of course, invariably linked to the progressive era, to the movement, to the progressive era movement. In a session which I did some time ago on feminism from a historical perspective, my approach of feminism is basically a combination of using the theoretical model of Simone de Beauvoir, the great French philosopher and partner of Jean-Paul Sartre, and her classic work, The Second Sex, but also Sarah Pomeroy, the historian who wrote about the classical world, the role of women in the classical world, Mary Daly, who wrote about the Middle Ages. So I take all those works into account. However, since we do live in the era of neoliberalism, and my focus is on the neoliberal era of the last 45 years, I try to look at how feminism has been molded by the neoliberal culture, the neoliberal value system, and ideology. Just an overview. The fact is that feminism is indeed invariably linked to social class. It is impossible to get away from that reality, no matter how distasteful some may find the linkage between feminism and social class, and there are those who separate the two. But even in the ancient times, as Sarah Pomeroy points out and other scholars have point out, there is a huge difference between women, the role of women in society, in as you go in the social higher in the social ladder, and women as you go lower in the social ladder. That's just reality. So social class, um, as late 19th century intellectuals pointed out, including, by the way, the work of Friedrich Engels, the collaborator with Marx, and his study on the origin of family and society, and the state, I should say, not society, the state. There is a direct correlation between social class and the role of women, and it remains so. It remains so. There's a huge difference in the role of women, in the role of a woman in society who is a billionaire or a multi-millionaire, and a woman who works in a factory. That's just reality. No matter the beguiling rhetoric about, yes, it's all, the issue of feminism, we're going to level everything and set aside the class issue. That's just not, that's delusional. It's not realistic at all. It's not how real life works. Um, Feminism became invariably an issue because of the rise of the open society with industrial capitalism during the second industrial revolution of the 19th century in Europe and, of course, in the United States. Japan also industrializing in the late 19th century, along with the United States, I should say. So we have the democratization of society because the working class becomes more numerous and more important in industrial capitalism, and workers demand rights. And coincidentally, so trade unions demand rights. So coincidentally, so do women. And there were women like Emma Goldman, for example, who worked both sides of those issues concurrently. They were promoting working class rights as well as women's rights. So we have many women also who were promoting the rights of workers, especially women workers, as they entered the labor force because of the children, because there were children in the labor force. So they became advocates of children. So these issues become interrelated. So the rights of women become interwoven as part of an open society, and as it's evolving toward a more liberal democracy. In the late 19th century, when government realizes that it has to regulate businesses and regulate labor management relations and social relations in order to achieve market harmony and equilibrium and achieve social harmony and political harmony. Now, in the era we're in the last 45 years or so, with neoliberalism, the neoliberal model has been co opted. Not that it wasn't co opted, by the way, during the Cold War. The fact is that there were feminists during the Cold War who were pushing the feminist agenda on this side and Cold War politics on the other side. So that is just a sad reality, but it's a reality. Identifying, in other words, trying to point out to the rest of the world, well, you see, we're in favor of women's rights over here, while we are pursuing regime change in the global south over here. So that's another chapter. Now, in the neoliberal political economy, as I point out in the longer video, what we have is the role of women absorbed by the neoliberal political economic culture, ideology, and value system, namely the consumer citizen feminist. The consumer citizen feminist, typified by usually women of the elite in the public and private sector, whether they're women who are CEOs of corporations or women in politics like Hillary Clinton, for example. So you have those women. Now, historically, by the way, historically, the feminist movement since the late 19th century to the present has been a bourgeois movement. No doubt about it. This, although Emma Goldman was in fact an immigrant, a Polish Jewish immigrant, was in fact an advocate of trade union rights, workers' rights. That's all true. Emma Goldman was more or less the exception. There were others. But in the main, this is a bourgeois movement. The feminist movement has been a bourgeois movement, more or less like the environmental movement. Not to say that there is no legitimacy. This is not, and I emphasize this, to argue that there's no legitimacy in women's rights. Far from it. Uh, the question is who is incorporated in these rights? Is it just the domain of the bourgeoisie? Is it just the domain of the middle class women, the well to do women? And while we relegate a lesser role to the rest, while we marginalize working class women. So this is an issue that is discussed in the video as well. Neoliberalism commodifies everything, including human beings. Human beings are a commodity. The consumer citizen is a commodity. The neoliberal feminist movement was absorbed by the hegemonic culture. And the hegemonic culture is the neoliberal culture. So what we have is first neoliberal goals have to be met, and they're met, and the feminist movement can operate within the context of those goals. Therein rest the problems with feminism within the context of the neoliberal model serving those goals, because it winds up being a movement to advance the cause of the elites, females, within the upper class, the echelons, the upper class women, the wealthy women, and who are very vocal, by the way, but they're vocal about themselves becoming, whether they become, there should be more CEOs. There's no doubt there should be more CEOs. There should be a woman president, like Kamala Harris is running for the presidency. Fine, excellent. More women college presidents. Great. However, what is not said is what happens to the women left behind en masse, on a mass scale, whether out in the rural areas or in working as cleaning ladies in government offices or corporate offices. I invite you to take a look at this video on feminism. It tries to bring together the neoliberal ideology and feminism, and to please ask questions, write comments. Also, I invite you to join uh, this channel, which is educational. It's managed by Asad Alim. By all means, join and follow the various programs that we have to offer. And I thank you for joining me today. Thank you very much.